What's up, Chooms? I am one of your hosts, Phoenix.
And I am your other host, Titan.
And welcome to NTAT. So Titan and I have been working our way through Cyberpunk 2077 along with the DLC, and we wanted to talk about the positive reception that this game has gotten versus the very negative launch the game had. Now, I had a very different experience with Cyberpunk than most at launch. I played on my Xbox Series X and I had little to no bugs. I have been screaming from the hilltops its praises for the past 3 years. Titan, on the other hand, on my recommendation, picked up the game in early 2022, but he got it for the PS4. So he had a very similar experience to most people during the launch window of the game. I want to let Titan talk about his initial experience with the game versus his current experience as he's now playing on the PC. I also want to talk a bit about the alternate history of the game, something that I've seen many times as of late when a game is either being praised or drugged through the mud. So Titan, why don't you tell us about your experience on the PS4 versus your experience now on the PC?
Alright, like you said, I originally bought Cyberpunk on the PS4 last year, well after the updates and the fixes were said to have fixed the game. But little did I know I would go on to have one of the worst gaming experiences ever. From the moment I loaded the game, I was already faced with major problems, and one of the worst ones that I faced was that no weapon would ever actually load for me. They would shoot, but be completely invisible. And I tried several fixes like restarting checkpoints, restarting the game, and starting a new character, which fixed the problem up until I picked up a new weapon and then they all disappeared again. I tried to get over that, but any mission that would put me as a passenger in the car, I would often clip through the car and just fall through the map. Not only did these problems exist, but the graphics of the game were really rough. Things wouldn't be loaded in, texture quality was bad, overall just a bad experience, and I can't really say that there was anything good. And I never made it far enough in the story to know if the game was good or not. The game was just unplayable for me. Alright, switching over to the PC. Thankfully, Phoenix bought this game for me on Steam and convinced me to give the game another chance. And I gotta say, it was a brand new game. Starting with the graphics, since this is something that 25 hours into the game, I am still blown away by the world. With as bad as the glitches were on the PS4, I really expected there to be some. But I can honestly say that I have not encountered one glitch yet. I have never had any game perform quite like this one. Everything from load times to the graphics is on point. I have had no frame rate drops or random pop-ins or unrendered areas, and I haven't fell through the map, which is a positive. The experience has really been a complete 180, and I'm glad I get to give this game another chance because it definitely deserves it. Alright, I want to switch gears and talk about the game a little bit more by itself. This is what an open world game should feel like. The immersion this game offers by having such a wide variety of NPCs all doing different things. The way the map itself isn't big, but the way they have it built, the world feels large. I enjoy how you interact with NPCs during these sit-down conversations, even being a passenger in their car. You're able to look around at everything going on around you. Going into Cyberpunk, glitches aside, I really expected a bland story with a few fetch quests that had a messy open world. I haven't completed the main story yet, but the way this game makes you feel while doing these missions makes it feel important. Everyone I meet is so detailed and have depth to their personality that I actually connect with them, and I'm truly excited to complete the game and start the Phantom Liberty DLC. It will be interesting to see how my thoughts change by the end. Since Starfield is the most recent game that we've talked about on this channel, I want to compare the differences in the two. Cyberpunk has opened my mind about how open world games should be and the way that the world looks and feels. This is something that Starfield really does lack. Starfield NPCs are very copy and paste filling. There is absolutely no variety other than the color of the skin and some face and hair changes. The zoom in effect Starfield does when having dialogue. This is something that I stated earlier that I love about Cyberpunk, is the way that these conversations are more immersive. Cyberpunk is very much a mature game, while Starfield likes to keep it friendly. This is not to discredit Starfield in any way whatsoever. They are two vastly different games and should be treated as such, but these are things that I've noticed while playing Cyberpunk.
As Titan just mentioned, we just came off of playing Starfield and really enjoyed our time. Like most people, we've had our behind the scenes conversation comparing and contrasting Cyberpunk and Starfield. What I have found strange is there's been this narrative about how Starfield is stuck in the past when compared to Cyberpunk. The reason I find this argument interesting is because when Cyberpunk launched, it was hailed as one of the biggest failures of modern times. That's not a shocking statement, as CD Red was coming off a successful campaign of The Witcher 3, which was nothing but a fan-driven masterpiece. The issue I take with this newfound rhetoric when singing Cyberpunk's praises is that it rewrites history without ever explaining why. Many people who have loved Cyberpunk knew that under all the technical issues at launch, there was an amazing game. If you were to take the time and read or listen to the initial reviews of Cyberpunk versus the current reviews after patch 2.0 and the DLC, wording is completely different. Let me say this as I'm playing through the game for the third time. All the patchwork has provided a much needed stability, bug fixes, and some quality of life fixes like the skill tree. But the game itself, the missions, side quests, the flow is the exact same as it was during launch. During the launch window, it wasn't just that Cyberpunk was a technical mess on last gen or PC. There was a lot of talk about how the main mission was lacking, side quests were cookie cutter, combat was serviceable but lacking punch. But in 2023, I am seeing tons and tons of videos and articles using Cyberpunk as the benchmark for what Starfield should have been. CD Projekt Red has come to the defense of Starfield many times, starting with a video a few months back talking about how outdated Starfield was compared to Cyberpunk. The devs, in a very humorous manner, reminded players of the negative reception that Cyberpunk had at launch. This is what I'm talking about when I say history has been rewritten when discussing Cyberpunk. It was a great game then, and it's an even better game now with all the technical fixes. I'm absolutely elated that people are discovering the greatness of this game. What I don't like is how so many game journalists and YouTubers are making it seem like this was the gold standard all along, and that's not how it was presented. To say the game has completely turned around with patch 2.0 and the DLC will be a false statement, as the game is largely the same as it was during launch, minus the bugs. Now, I don't want to come off as a Starfield apologist video because it's not. It's more about the respect that I have for what CD Red created. Do they deserve the criticism they got during the initial launch? 100%. Do they deserve the praise for working on the game all this time and getting it into the shape that it is now? Definitely. I just want to point out the inconsistency of how the game has been shown recently compared to what it was just 3 years ago, especially if it's going to be used to criticize other games.
Alright folks, well that wraps up our Cyberpunk videos, so if you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. And join us every Friday morning. We'll be there.
You be there.